So, hey, I've been using the Azure Resource Manager lately to do provisioning, and I've come to really like it. But it turns out with my GitHub stuff, I actually use it a little differently than a lot of people, so I thought I'd call it out. So in this case, there's generally the most common way you see demonstrated is either through the portal, and in the portal you'll pass it a template JSON file and a parameter JSON file. You'll kind of upload those into the portal and you'll run it and you'll get provisioned. And then the other way I've seen you see examples usually is a CLI example with two JSON files. So there'll be two command line options. This works in the PowerShell and in the Linux command line CLI. You basically pass it a template option and a parameters option, and those are JSON files. It turns out in my case, that's great, but what I want to do is reuse the parameters across multiple templates. And so I want to define those parameters. Oh, and the bad part of this is you can't provide any extra parameters. You have to provide the exact number of parameters that the template takes. And that's annoying because if you statically build those files and you got a bunch of templates that take similar values, you got to go and make duplicates of everything. So in my case, what I do now, which I really like, is I invoke the command line with a JSON file, and it turns out when you give it the -- parameters, instead of giving it a parameter file, you can give it a space separated list of name value pairs. Name equals value, name equals value. And that will pass all those in. I think what it actually does is it creates a JSON file inside the CLI and it sends them together. But it makes it super simple to invoke. And you can actually have as many of these dash parameter command line options as you want. So if you wanted to pass in a standard JSON, you could go dash parameters, the JSON file, and then dash parameters, a set of parameters. So here's an example from a GitHub repo. You can see deployment create. We're going to create the resource group, and we're going to pass in the template, and then we're going to pass in the parameters. This could have been another JSON file, but instead I just gave it two parameters. In this case, there's actually three parameters in this template file. One of them has a default value, so I didn't need to provide it. If on the command line you dropped one of the other two parameters, the command line will, just like it does with the JSON file, it will automatically prompt you for those. So you'll know if you're missing one. So this little line thing here, this line here provides the two parameters instead of putting them in a JSON file. And we can see that those are the parameters that are needed here. And that's it. So I hope that's useful. This is a way for you to write scripts and pass the parameters in on the command line rather than having to either statically build a JSON or build up a JSON. I hope that's useful to you. Leave feedback if you have any questions.